Alrighty, what's up guys, welcome back to another video on the channel, and today I'm going to be ranking all the Skylanders games based on their graphics. This is something that I really haven't seen anyone do, but a lot of people prefer the graphics in different Skylanders games compared to others, which makes sense because all of them pretty much have very different graphical styles. I know some of them are pretty similar, but I can at least tell which game it is just by their graphics without the UI or anything. So today I wanted to do a video pretty much ranking them from my least favorite to my favorite. This isn't objectively like, oh, which one has the best frame rate or whatever. It's not about that. It's just about which art style and which graphics I think look the best for Skylanders overall. So let's get right into it. So in last place for me, the Skylanders game that I think has the worst graphics is going to be Spyro's Adventure. I know this really isn't like a big hot take or anything. That's pretty much a given at this point. I think most people could agree with this. It's just the oldest. I mean, it's had the most time to age, and I think like it's aged a little bit poorly. However, I did play it the other day, and it actually didn't look that bad. When you play it, even on something like the 360 or the PS3, it actually doesn't look that bad. So I think SSA doesn't look quite as bad as people might make it out to be, but of course the other games are just going to look better than it overall. The characters when you're playing your Skylander can often look kind of pixelated, and when you look at the NPCs character models such as Flynn, I mean, he looks very blocky in this game. You can tell like it is just not as high quality as some of the later games for sure. And I mean, this is obviously because of older hardware. I mean, the PS4, Xbox One weren't out yet, but this game's graphics are still probably the worst in the franchise, and just barely ahead of it is going to be Giants. I think Giants is actually an improvement over SSA. I think a lot of people think that they just had the exact same graphics, but overall, I think the art style is what's similar, but the graphics are actually, I think, a little bit better in Giants. Sometimes when I play, even on my 360 or my Wii U, it will hit 60 frames per second and stay at that for a pretty long time, which is actually really impressive for a 2012 game on a Wii U or 360 to run at 60 FPS. It's really impressive, and it looks beautiful, and it does. The graphics overall, I think, were improved, especially like the textures and the character models for a lot of the NPCs and the Skylanders just look better in this game, and it sort of just flows better when you're playing it. Sometimes obviously does hit 60 FPS, and I think it might also hit 1080p, but I'm not totally sure about that. And then also, I mean, there's different versions obviously. Like if you're playing on the Wii, SSA and Giants are going to look very similar, but if you're playing on 360 or something like that, you will probably notice a slight difference between Giants and SSA. And then character models being pixelated isn't really an issue that I have in Giants, which is different than SSA. SSA, I feel like I do really notice they kind of look pixelated, or at least around the edges, but Giants, I don't really notice that. So Giants is definitely an improvement. Now in fourth place, this is going to be Imaginators for me. Honestly, everything in this game just looks like a weird mix of Toys for Bob's art style and Vicarious Visions art style. It was developed by Toys for Bob, but it was using the Vicarious Visions engine, which I guess makes sense. It just doesn't feel as smooth as the Vicarious Visions games, but it doesn't really feel as crisp as the earlier Toys for Bob's games when I'm playing it. I'm not totally sure why, but this game just doesn't. The graphics don't feel like on par with the other later Skylanders games, and the textures overall just are not as beautiful. Like if you look at some of the earliest Skylanders games, they're absolutely beautiful to look at. But this game really, like, the textures just aren't on point. They aren't as nice to look at. I'm not totally sure why that is. Maybe it's just the bland coloration. I feel like this game also has pretty bland colors compared to other games. Maybe that's a reason some of the people say that the levels are uninspired, just because they're pretty bland looking, even though they're fun. But I'm not totally sure. But Imaginators doesn't feel like it has as good graphics, even though it's obviously on the newer consoles. It runs, you know, 60 FPS, 1080p, all that. You can play it on PS5, on your Xbox Series X or whatever. It'll look absolutely beautiful, but the overall graphical art style I don't think is as good as some of the earlier games. Now coming in third place, this might be a shocker to some, I have Swap Force. I know a lot of people actually really like the graphics for this game, but not really for me. A lot of it feels really like mushy and muddy, especially when you look at the earlier games that are in like the sort of swampy rainforest type area. Everything just looks kind of like mushed together, and I don't know, the textures kind of like fade into each other. They're not as like crisp or sharp as something like Trap Team is, which is why I don't know, but this does make it feel very smooth. There aren't any like jagged edges in the game. It actually looks pretty good when you're playing through it. Obviously it is a pretty beautiful looking Skylanders game. I think it's in the top half of them, and it's definitely like a weird, interesting jump from the first two games. If you just played the first two games and then you played Swap Force, you might love it, you might hate it. I'm not totally sure because it's definitely going to be different, but for some people they really like it. Me personally, I think it's better than the first two. Obviously, just overall like better graphics. It definitely has a better resolution. Now it's in HD, and it has a better frame rate now, so that's awesome. but I don't know, everything just kind of looks plasticky in this game, especially the new Skylanders models in game. They don't really look the same as they did in the past, but overall it's not bad at all. I still think Swap Force has pretty good graphics, just not quite that top tier that a lot of people think they are. Now in second place I have Superchargers. I just think this is a better overall Swap Force. It's on the Vicarious Visions engine, which is the first game we saw they use the Swap Force engine. Obviously prior to, or not prior, the first game that came after Swap Force that used the Vicarious Visions engine, same as Swap Force. So it's kind of just an improvement on it overall. I think it just looks better overall. Everything looks sharper and more defined while still keeping the smooth feel from Swap Force. I said that Swap Force kind of feels like it's a mushed and like muddy and just doesn't look very clean. But Superchargers kind of perfects that, as a lot of the edges do look sharper, do look more defined, and the graphics just pop more because of that. I think everything just looks a little bit better, a little bit cleaner to look at, and definitely I think this is the peak of the Vicarious Visions Skylanders graphics. Definitely the frame rate and the resolution are pretty much on point in this game, along with a lot of the other graphics for the later games. And the vehicle models are also really cool, are really well done, as well as the character models. I think they're pretty high resolution and pretty high quality overall. They don't look super blocky, they don't look super pixelated, they don't look super they don't have like pixelated edges or any of those issues. They look really nice in this game, and I'm actually really impressed with how Superchargers looks. I think it's a great looking Skylanders game. Now number one, the Skylanders game with the best graphics I think is Trap Team. This game has very crisp and sharp graphics. It seemed like SSA and Giants if they were in HD. The graphics in this game are just absolutely beautiful, and that was definitely complemented by the bright colors. This game has a lot of bright, colorful, different color palettes for the levels, and I think it looks great with these graphics because there are these sharp, crisp edges that look very nice. Character models overall in this game I think are decent. I think they're really good. They might not be as good as the Vicarious Visions character models, but they're not bad for sure. I think for the most part they look pretty good. And it does feel like, again, SSA with HD graphics. It feels like what SSA could have been if it released later on. This is definitely the peak of the Toys for Bob designs for these Skylanders games. And I think the resolution and the frame rate are also pretty on point. It runs pretty dang well, especially if you're playing on a newer console. So that's why Trap Team is in first place. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is just my personal opinion, so don't be offended by anything I say in this. And let me know which Skylanders games you think had the best graphics, because I'm actually pretty interested to see. I know a lot of people like Swap Force graphics. Obviously, I'm not the hugest fan of them, but I would be interested to see what you guys think. So if you want to comment down below, I would probably read through them, and it'd be pretty cool. So thank you guys for watching again. I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.